Send those to your clients, because in those moments, instead of you sending an email with just like, here's this question, here's this question, here's this question.
Like, oh, I got a free game, like hitting the button. Or in some cases, it's just like, oh, I got a notification that it worked.
Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Sean, and I'm here with the best, the greatest.
Fitz, how's it going?
How's it going, everybody? We are here live. We're here for episode 62.
Dang, that's a big number, my dude.
It's a big number. I do want to say really quickly before we get into things, I've been doing a little bit of research into other creative podcasts, and we're kind of one of the oldest. We're kind of the old guys on the block. When you think about new podcasts, we're kind of like the oldest, newest creative podcast in a way.
Huh.
So congrats, man.
Well, we take it, we deserve it. Obviously, it's a interesting journey doing a podcast, because most podcasts like dying after one or two episodes, and right now I see a renaissance of podcasts. So there's a lot of new people doing podcasts, like some of my videographer friends, and it's like there's always like a new spurt. So I feel like it's not dead, but it's like definitely like on the rising again.
Well, yeah, definitely that saturation, right? I feel like we're pioneers, and we got to the mountains first, and then now all these people are all showing up. And sorry if you hear anything, it's not a hurricane, it's a mic being adjusted. But so yeah, it's cool. It's cool to be here. It's cool for all of you guys to be here. I do want to shout out, a lot of people listening on Spotify, a lot of people listening on these other platforms. So thank you, all of you. So yeah, let's just dive into it, right?
Yeah. So I hear we have a topic, and it is injection fun for design.
It's injecting, but yeah, no, it's so to kind of get into it, I think one of the strongest things that can happen when you design something is to inspire joy, right? I think that's kind of how you can nail sales. You can get past really, really, terrible things that are happening. If you can inject fun, you can really push a customer or a user to do something, to kind of let down their guard and do the thing that you want them to do by injecting that fun.
Yeah.
So I, to kind of jump into things, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So one of the first examples that I can remember, any MailChimp user that was there kind of in the olden days of MailChimp, aka like 5 to 10 years ago, will probably remember this, where you would send a campaign, you'd have the anxiety, crap, did I send that right? And you're nervously clicking, and so what they did is they put this chimp hand up there. They would click, and it would slowly get red as you're slapping that hand. You just keep slapping that hand. You slap it again, it's getting redder. It's getting redder. And then it goes to an entire game that's called MailChimp Presents Fast Fives, and it would literally open up an entire game that was all about how you would, you would go ahead and you would be like clicking like weird, goofy things. And so it's just this goofy game that you're clicking all these different things. And so it's funny, like, so what's the point of this game? Like, why, you're sending an email campaign. What's really the point of it? And so the point of it, is to really, inspire joy in this moment. You just sent a campaign. You're anxious. Is it going to get views? Did I misspell something? Are the buttons even working? And they're like, you know what? Let's make this fun. Let's actually let's hit the dopamine release for you. Instead of you remembering this moment as a scary moment, let's have you remember it as a really fun moment where you're like hitting cactuses and hands and trying to get a high score on this game. Which I love. I remember when I first found this out, I found it out pretty organically, where it was, I'd sent a campaign just like anyone else, and I did the nervous click. I was like, okay, did it work? And then and the hand went away, and I was like, oh, and then it came back, and I hit it again. I was like, oh my God. And I will always remember that now. It's been like 7 years since that interaction, and I'm still using MailChimp today. Shout out to MailChimp, because, that interaction, I feel like, helped it. It helped me kind of feel this good sense, this dopamine release, like I said. So that's kind of one example that so now if you want to fast forward to now, for anyone out there that uses Asana, which is like a project management tool, they'll know about this, that when you complete a task in Asana, that you'll get this unicorn that's shooting. So as you do a task, you have this unicorn that shoots across the screen. Yet again, does this make sense at all on a logical level? No, not at all. Like if you were to make like a to-do app, you wouldn't think that when they complete something, we're going to have a unicorn fly across the screen. But yet again, it's this kind of micro piece of joy and fun that makes something very mundane into something cool. And what's cool about it is it helps market the tool. So if I'm like looking at you using Asana and I'm like, did I just see a unicorn fly across your screen? It generates interest. And that's super cool.
Yeah. You got like an example on the screen? Oh.
Oh yeah, I've had it this whole time. So yeah, so as you guys can see, as you click one of the things, you get this unicorn that just flies across the screen, and it's so funny because it's like, yet again, it makes no sense, but it's awesome. Like it's just awesome for awesome's sake. Which, in design, we're kind of told like if it doesn't have a point, it shouldn't be on the screen. And I think these kinds of things are examples of the opposite of like, you know what, this does have a point, and it's inspiring joy.
Yeah. So with that being said, like I kind of want to go back to like the first one, the what was it? Mailchimp, because like it is a painful experience and it's causing anxiety, and you will remember that with the app, and that is a big problem because like if you remember pain and a service, you will not try continue doing that service, even though it's very helpful. So it's very important to relieve that, or maybe hide it, or transform it into a fun experience, because it could be the best solution for it. And it's like, oh, I'm looking forward for sending out some emails so I can play the monkey game,
100%.
Yeah. So, and if you don't do that, you just be stuck with that anxiety, and you may be like, okay, what is my guilty pleasure afterwards? I'm going onto YouTube, watching 5 videos or whatever, So it is a thing that is not that good. So you need to relieve that anxiety, that stress, that pressure in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, 100%. And if we look at like what's their main competitor, let's look at Constant Contact. When you send an email there's no game, there's no goofiness. Yeah. And so I think that's what put them ahead of their competition is, when you think of email CRM platforms, you definitely, I would argue, think that MailChimp is the funnest of them all. That you actually, in your brain, you're like, that one's the more fun of all of them right now. Where the other ones are very dry, white screens, very businessy.
Yeah. So from a design aspect, though, because I was looking around the other day for setting up an email list and everything, and I was like going through all the services. There's like SocialKit, there's like MailChimp, there's like all those other ones. And I feel like MailChimp has that old school design that is like, okay, we do it all. And it's like a little bit older from the feel in my eyes, even though that monkey game was like really surprising me, because like I came out of nowhere basically checking those tools out, never really dabbled with them, so I had no idea, and was surprised that they have that aspect, because the design seems more dated in my eyes.
Well, what's interesting is, so this has gone away. That's really funny that you say that, because now so they got I forgot. I think it was kind of a famous illustrator who now does the illustrations for MailChimp. And, and it's still kind of fun and goofy. Like when you send an email, you get this kind of goofy people like doing goofy stuff in like an illustration. But I think you're right, though. I think like I would argue that, they used to be more fun, and now they've gotten less fun. It
became too corporate, it feels like.
A little too corporate. But, yet again, go to Constant Contact, though, and all you're going to see is a stock image of like, here's a guy passing off business papers. Here's someone in like, it's very like, well, it's like, it feels, so even MailChimp now has fun illustrations and things where it's like, we could just show you a stock image of people in an office giving a meeting, or we could have a fun illustration that's really goofy where the head's tiny and the body's all big. And so it's funny that you say that, though, because you're getting a whole new thing, but you're past the time of the fun MailChimp, and you're getting more into the corporate-y MailChimp era. So interesting.
Yeah, so on the other side, it's like reminds me around when I was like checking it out, I booked the service, so they have the free account where you can start an email campaign, and then you can pay extra, and then you get SMS campaigns and all that jazz, So basically, got the free version, but it reminded me of Yellow Pages, back in the day. So I guess it was back in the day fun too to just scroll through the Yellow Pages and randomly call a person. What would have been the mini game?
So for all of you people out there that don't remember the 90s at all, or weren't born yet and listening to this podcast, Yellow Pages are this old archaic book that we would all follow that would have every number in the world, and you actually had to like call in to tell them to take out your numbers. So people could actually stalk people through Yellow Pages, because it literally had every number known to man in it. But if you needed a plumber, you didn't have Google, you had the Yellow Pages. And so it's interesting that this, and I think it's the yellow maybe that's bringing you back. But it's interesting that yellow hasn't. It's still kind of tied to Yellow Pages for some of us.
To be honest, it was more the bad design, because like. Sorry for saying like bad design, but it's like it's a very big corporate tool, so they are appealing to like being corporate, and being efficient, and we're the best. and it took all the fun away. Where you saw the unicorn thing, and I'm like, that's really startup mentality. This is like, we're fresh, we're cool, and Yellow Pages is like, no, we're not fresh and cool. We're yellow, Yellow Pages. We're just like, no really fun design. And MailChimp reminded me of that when I signed up to it. And I'm like, okay, that's just the outsider perspective from a videographer.
well, very important. So if you're MailChimp and you're listening, you maybe aren't going the right way. You maybe need to track back to Goofy a little bit more fun. I don't know. It's very interesting though that you say that, and I don't completely disagree with that. To kind of move on. I'll go ahead and share my screen here again really quickly. So another cool interaction. I forget what this is. If this is Bear Tunnel or one of the other kind of bear apps, but a fun little interaction, right? You're entering your password and the bear's like literally following as you're typing. It's such a small thing, but it makes something super mundane into something memorable, and I think that's really cool. Like when you really think about it, how many things what you do creatively are mundane that you could make really interesting. Another one really quickly I'll show. Google. Anyone that's ever done Google Voice, you'll see this, where it actually is kind of following your voice. And yet again, very small interaction, but really cool. And it actually feels like when you see this interaction and it seems to be following your words, you actually start to feel like, oh, it's actually hearing what I'm saying. Like it's actually working. And when you get that feedback, when you get that immediate feedback, you're like, cool. It actually creates this trust where they could have nothing happening. You could just be like Google Voice and it just stays still. Of course, your brain at first will be like, is it recording? Is it actually intaking what I'm putting? But since they added this fun little interaction, you get this trust that, okay, cool, it actually is hearing what I'm saying.
Yeah, with that being said, like I think like they also like really learned about human psychology because it's like triggering that reward system. Like, oh, I did something happened. 100%. Now I'm getting like endorphins like everywhere. I'm like, oh yeah, I got something, And in some cases, it's really rewarding. Like, oh, I got a free game, like hitting the button. Or in some cases, it's just like, oh, I got a notification that it worked, And even that little bit is sometimes enough to kind of get you hooked. It's like when you're on a slot machine and you just crank that arm and it makes a, it's like the sounds, the visuals. If you highlight that, you really can manipulate a person to really like something. What is good and bad, and there's like the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. But I think we approach it more from the ethical aspect.
Right. And also like people don't hate waiting, right? They hate waiting. They hate loading screens, right? So I don't have this example, but one that I remember really well from being a kid, I love bringing stuff back to The Sims, but when you'd play The Sims, the loading screen always had really fun stuff where it was just like, assembling houses, putting the dogs back into the dog houses, and it would just put up these fun messages of what it's doing as it's loading, and that in turn made your brain a lot more okay with this loading screen. You're like, you know what, it's fun, and it's like those moments where if you can take something, so if you have any interaction, so if you're a videographer, is there a part of your video that people are going to kind of glaze over? If you're a designer and you're designing an app, is there a part of that app that's mundane and boring? If you're a page layout person, if you're making catalogs and stuff, is there something mundane? If it's a table of just data, is there a way to make that more fun? And I think that's important. I think us as designers and creatives, sometimes we get in this place where we're like, I just need to communicate it as clearly as possible. Don't put anything on the page that doesn't need to be there. But I think sometimes you should put something on the page that doesn't necessarily need to be there because that's life, right? Life isn't perfect. Sometimes the best parts of life are things that weren't supposed to be there, but it ended up creating a very interesting interaction.
Yeah, also like from the branding aspect, if you don't have any fun, that's a sign of like, okay, I'm not a really fun app, and that is like, branding is very important of like, how much fun do we put in there? What are our values? Do we want to, hijack the dopamine train and just like, okay, we're putting everything in there, and then I'm like, who do we target? Will they like that? Will they feel you like kind of like use, when you see all those gambling apps, they have the really good sounds. Like if you are a sound designer for a gambling app, that sound is the most important part nearly. Same with the visuals, when things pop up, because in the end, what really is the reward? It's like money, but 20 times out of, or even more, like you will most likely lose your money. You play 100 times, you maybe win once or twice, nearly nothing. And this nothingness needs to be the most rewarding thing to keep you hooked through all that pain. And I feel like that is like where it's like, yeah, the little things matter the most. But if you have a good service, you can kind of just do your good service, and you don't need really like, okay, now I have to shower them with like little rewards to just like, oh yeah, I did the most amazing service, because you already did. You know?
Well, yeah, and I, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think Apple's another one that does it really well. Like in their packaging, when you get an Apple product, it could be basic. It's not much, but what they do, they put it in this nice box, and they put it in this way that even you pull something out and it kind of pops up in this cool way. It's these small things. Do they have to do that? Is that part of the computer you bought? No, not at all. But it's like they want it to be memorable.
Experience.
If you have that memory, if you create this memory is everything, right?
Yeah.
Memory is everything. And like the first time you go to IKEA and you're like, whoa, just the way this is laid out and how you have these beautiful arrangements. Like they've set up that memory now. Now you have memories of when you've been to IKEA. So now when people are like, "Hey, let's go to IKEA," you get that little bit of excitement. You're like, you know what, this will be fun. Instead of like, let's go to Home Depot, where it's a whole different experience. It's I don't get joy from going. Maybe some people out there are like, yeah, Home Depot, but like, but it's not made to be fun. That's where it's like it's all logical. Everything's logic. But that doesn't necessarily inspire people. So if Home Depot wanted to, I think that's where Lowe's kind of beats Home Depot, where they've tried to put it more in the realm of like, let's have some stuff set up, let's have it be a little nicer feeling, and that's how I think you get different demographics. I think Home Depot is good for contractors and people, but if you want like families, like you want the wife and the husband to go somewhere, I think that's where Lowe's was really smart and like, well, let's make us not so cold and concrete. Let's go a little bit the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, like that is like really one of those things where it's like, okay, the whole experience is the most important part, but also like if you do it too logical, you just go in and out and you just buy what you need. But they kind of like, they tricked you in supermarkets, for example. Let's play some music. So you let your guard down. All those things matter, because like some people are like, I'm not getting influenced by the music, but if you're in a good mood because you'll hear like happy music, it's different than when you're like, okay, there's like a mole emo song playing where it's like, oh, life sucks, and it's like it affects your ability to make decisions, and you want to be in a good mood to make good decisions, but it's also like, oh, now you're getting hijacked by your endorphins and you're just like bought too much lumber or like the new drill that you don't need because you got one, it's like,
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, me and my girlfriend, we have a lot of power tools, and they're all Ryobi, right? And, Ryobi is a great brand, but what makes Ryobi stand out from other things? Well, it's lime green, and it's such a weird color for power tools. You'd be like, if you were to make a power tool company, you'd be like, well, I'll probably just go black or silver or whatever is the easiest and most manly tool. Yeah. But they were like, no, let's go lime green. Like, let's stand out. And so, and it looks cool. Like, we just put up a pegboard. Shout out to our pegboard we put up this weekend, where now they're all hanging up on this pegboard and all this green stuff. And it's cool. You feel this cool, like, we're legit. We got this. So, it's, yet again, does it make sense? You can maybe argue it helps find the tools easier, things like that, but it's that zigging when they zag. I always say that to anytime I have a branding client is, and they're like, our competition does X, Y, and Z, so we should do it. And I'm like, but should you? I mean, go the other way. Take the, obviously don't destroy your company taking a crazy risk, but can you take small risks to differentiate yourself?
Yeah, no, I feel like that is important. And the aspect of like giving rewards and making it fun, or just like make the experience nicer, is like, I think that's like where everybody is like kind of like skimming on. It's like, how often do you actually work on the experience? Like, okay, if I go on my website, if I scroll, will be there a sound? Do I want there a sound? Is there like a pop-up or a whoosh or an animation? Most people forget about doing that. It's like, okay, I'm scrolling, nothing is really cool. And I'm guilty of that, where I'm like, I have like a bad website, but there's no real animations, but little things matter, and if you highlight the right things, you can maybe get away with having less of the rewarding experiences. If you have like a really pretty image, then you maybe don't need an animation, so it is a balance to everything.
Yeah, and when I kind of talk about the interactions, it's not these kind of fun interactions, is they're not always super obvious. To go back to Apple, their website's very beautiful in the small things. Like as you scroll down, the things are like slightly rotating. Things are very slight. So when I say that, I'm not saying it has to always be confetti explosions, but you can tell though, even at Apple, they're like, we just need to be subtly injecting joy, subtle things. I'll share something else on my screen. Another thing that happens is, when people mess up. So the 404 page, you put in the wrong URL and it goes to something wrong. Dribbble does a great job here. There's a lot of other examples out there, but even when someone messes up on your website, can you at that moment somehow capture their attention and keep their engagement? Like, can you imagine you go to a page that's saying that you went to the wrong page, and you sit here and you play with it for you're still getting engagement. You're still keeping people on your website even when they fail entering the URL.
Yeah.
And to quickly go into the next one, when people submit something, can you have this like loading thing that pops up yet again? So I get that interaction that I know you got what I said, and I'm willing to wait for this, rather than we've all clicked that button and then been like,
yeah,
is anything happening? And that's a worse interaction. So and you see this a lot in app design. I'm going to quickly roll through these just a little bit. Where
what are we seeing right now? We're seeing like a phone app that is like really smooth zoom in.
So you're seeing a lot of things happening on this, but it's all very subtle, right? So it's happening very quick, I know, for anyone out there watching this. But you're seeing these kind of slight motions. I really like that when this guy's in the airplane in a second, you're going to see outside that the sky is actually moving. But all these kind of small things that are happening to help create kind of a more unique experience, because this could have just been a flat layout, right? It could have easily just been a flat layout, but would it have been memorable then, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of examples of this in app design right now. The micro animations is a big deal. The micro interactions. Can I have the numbers scroll up in this kind of cool way? Can I have things slide in this really cool way? And can physics be part of this too? So when I hit a tile, it actually drops and slides. Yet again, logically, in a meeting when we're talking about logic, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would we spend time on that? But when we're talking about dopamine release, memorability, things like that, then these things are huge, I think. I think we all have to get better at that. And this isn't just, I know we're showing a lot of web design, interaction design, because that's my world, but this could apply to anything. I mean,
in the video aspect world, for everybody watching right now on YouTube, we have to, when you hit the like button, it should shine up, because like Google was like, okay, we need to, highlight the buttons a little bit more and stuff like that. It is very powerful, because like, the subscribe button, for example, as well. Like, there's like little things. It's fun to press. In the end, it's like, the artist, the host should encourage, like, hey, interact with this so we get data. Does this work? Does that not work? And it's like, it's really fun. But if it would be not fun, it's less likely to be used. And you want the features to be used, because like, if you don't do.
Yeah,
you don't know.
Exactly. So let's try it out right now. So for everyone out there, please like and subscribe to this video. And hopefully that button just lit up for you just now into this video. I mean, like, what a cool interaction. The fact that like you could say this in a video and the button is going to highlight. I mean, that's such a cool interaction.
Yeah. I mean, like, for the viewer, it doesn't really do anything besides getting the reward of the visuals, It would be kind of cool if they have like the sound popping up, Then it would be even more rewarding, because then people would be just like randomly abusing their button on stuff they don't care or like, if it's like too rewarding. Well, it's kind of funny to think about, Like, if you get subscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe, you kind of get stuck in a loop then, and it's like, you cannot make it too fun, because then it takes away from the function. What is like,
well, yeah, and so I could see why they wouldn't want to do a sound, right? Because if we're if there's music going on in our background and stuff, if this was a louder video and we're like and subscribe, and it goes, and it just kind of would like mess up the video a little bit too. So, but yet again, it's like, can we capture their eye? That's the biggest, I think, problem with a lot of videos, including us probably, where we get viewers, but like sometimes we're not able to get their attention to that subscribe button. So yet again, I love that YouTube and Google as a whole is thinking about this. Like, how do we get your attention to the places that matter on the page? And and the fact that they do this automatically, like they have a transcript literally running through something that is like finding that word and then making that interaction happen on a web page. So cool. I mean, for me as a web designer, I'm still trying to wrap my brain of how they're doing that in such a smooth way. It's so cool. I love it.
Like YouTube in general, or Google in general, is very AI heavy. So everything you say will be analyzed by AI. So that's how you get the subtitles. That's how you get like the automated translations and all that stuff. Like, if you actually dive into the features of Google or YouTube and you see what they do on what scale, because it's not one or two videos where they do it, it's like nearly the whole platform, and at least after 48 hours most of the features are working. So there's like, oh yeah, now I have captions on the video. They're maybe not the style that I want, so I don't, but it's like, they're mostly right. And then there's like, oh, it's not the language that I want. Oh, it's already auto translate because we have the captions. And so it's like, oh, you said something bad, so we don't show the video to somebody else. So it's like, there's a whole list of words you can't say. So it's like even saying cool words can be really rewarding if you have like snappy words, for example.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the part of it that confuses me, because that was a great explanation, by the way, but the part that really is cool in a web design part is like, okay, cool, it has AI doing the transcript, but now it's interacting with the code on the web page. Like I have the transcript somehow timing the button to do a certain animation somewhere else on the web page, which is really powerful. Could I have a video that says like, hey, everybody, welcome to my website. Check out my store, a thing highlights. Check out the about page, another thing highlights. Or scroll down to the bottom and somehow my video stays there and it scrolls down for you and shows this area. Can that all be possible? I mean, my mind's just blown with like, is that maybe the future of web design where you can literally input content in your website and have it interact and change the website itself?
Yeah.
So you could have it say, hey, welcome to my website. Let's take a tour. And the video is just staying there as you're showing them through the website. I mean, that's super cool.
Yeah, on the other side, me switching the camera angles, talking about like your desktop and showing your desktop, it's kind of the same thing. You know, I'm the AI right now pressing buttons because I'm getting triggered. And if I don't get triggered, I don't press the button, you know? What is like, it's a weird thought, but in the end, that's all that happens, you know? And right now you can build those systems, you know, like, okay, you go OBS, and whenever you press this button, you will do X, Y, and Z, and then you can have those shortcuts and whatever, and you can automate it in a way, you know, when you talk about something, shortcut on your phone gets triggered, and you get the whole automation. So it is a really weird future that we're going into.
Yeah, super cool. Makes me really excited, you know. So you know, I think to kind of like wrap this up, you know, I have a couple other videos, but I think we're fine. I think, you know, the biggest thing here is like, you know, how can we inject joy into the things that we design? And that needs to be part of the conversation when we're creating things. Is it can't just all be logic. Like that is definitely a big deal. It has to solve certain problems. It has to be easy to use. I agree with all of those things. So for all of you listening out there, I'm not saying add confetti and fireworks to everything, but what I'm saying is, what are the pain points in what you're doing, or what are the boring things in what you're doing, and how do you make that cooler? How do you make these bite-sized, cheap little ways to make someone smile?
Yeah. With that being said, like it's for me in the video aspect, it's like kind of, you know, kind of highlight certain things because they're important. You know, that can be focus, that can be color, that can be lighting, you know, all those things. But you can take that to a different level because this applies to everything. So let's say you write an email and you get booked, and now you're like, oh yeah, I got booked. You get the dopamine because you think you're getting money. The client is like, oh gosh, I spent money, you know, and he's not feeling great. So there should be like a reward for them, and you should keep that in mind and maybe be like, hey, maybe send an extra PDF with like, hey, here's my free guide for 10 poses, or here's my, you know, give them something so that they feel good about themselves. And look for little things where there's friction, where there's pain, and maybe sprinkle a little reward in there.
Yeah, well, you know, and actually I will show one more thing. I lied. So
well, maybe I show it if I'm getting triggered.
Yeah, exactly. We got to trigger Fitzmore. So this is a good example where there was a trash bin where nobody was throwing away their stuff, you know, and so they were like, well, how do we get people to actually throw away stuff? Well, let's actually make it an interesting, fun experience, right? So this guy did this where you throw it and you actually hear it. And like it actually like so they make this sound that sounds like when you throw it away, it's like following. And so like people are now interested. So what happens? People throw away more trash because it's fun. So like you can really make people do something that they didn't want to do before when it's fun. You know, so I think there's something to be learned there, that you can get a lot of people to really do something that they're not usually doing as long as you get them to smile. You really can, you know. And so for me, I think we can go switch off of that.
Yeah.
Now. But you know, so for me, you know, I'm trying to think of that too. Of like, there's a lot, like even client, like so. For example, this is something I've started to tell people. For everyone out here, this is kind of a cool like pro tip that I've just really started to think about when I was talking to a web designer a month ago, where. You know, we get a client, we have all these questions to ask the client, right? And maybe they don't get answered in that meeting, but we have all these things. So I'm branding you and I need to know all these different things. How many times do I get answers to all those things? It's very, very few, especially with the CEO. They don't have time to answer all these questions. So what do? Create a form. If you're a web designer, just create a multi-step beautiful form, that big type, big areas, and it's multi-step. So you do some info, it goes on the next thing, do next thing, and then submit, and it's done. Send those to your clients, because in those moments, instead of you sending an email, which is like, here's this question, here's this question, here's this question, they're going to be like, no. They're going to be like, they're going to look
too much work.
Yeah, but if you do it in a nice, beautiful form, and you do it multi-step where it's broken up into chunks, and even at the end, have a MailChimp type of thing when they press submit, it's like, woohoo, and confetti. Now you've made them actually answer all the questions that you need, and they actually feel like they were able to do that. You know, I know that you've probably had this too, where like you send a client a lot of stuff in an email, they get no answers, but in person, they give you all the answers. They're like, oh yeah, that only took like 5 minutes to give you those answers. Yeah. It's because it didn't feel difficult. As long as it doesn't feel difficult, then they'll give you what you want.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that is always the balance. But as long as we are mindful of that, we will be, like, you know, ahead of the game and basically sprinkling those rewards and get all the clients happy and get all the subscribes and likes, and the future will be bright. Because if you don't do it, your competition will do.
Exactly. You know? So please like and subscribe. The button lit up again.
Yeah. But yeah, with that being said, I kind of want to call it a day. This is now the Infinite Creative Podcast with Fitz and Sean.
With Fitz and Sean. But yeah, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.
Woo! Okay.
Cool. That was